Good morning. We got back again. I'm up quite early this morning. A lot of times I like to get an early start. So, as I told you before, we're going to have another part where I was going to go into, excuse me, the final part of what was going on with me. So now, when we last talked, I was being released from the hospital, and I described to you the difficulties I had with the wound vac. So now we're back at home. At this particular point, me and my wife, we're back at home. And so one of the instructions that we were given is that I was supposed to take my blood pressure every day. And then, of course, you know, we had virtual meetings with the main staff that was charged with making sure that I had the best of care. And so we continued to do those things. And then a at-home nurse was also assigned to me. So as you can tell from the way things turned out, I received the best of care, coupled with the care from my wife. She did a stellar job too. And so we were given a threshold for my blood pressure. I think it was above maybe 140, I want to say. I'm not sure, but I'll say that. But anyway, I was sitting around one day watching TV, you know, talking crazy, as I always do. Excuse me. And my wife took my blood pressure, and she says, "Oh no, your blood pressure is pretty high." And so we go to the emergency room. Here I am again. And what they find out is that I have, in layman's term, I've developed in the sac around my heart, there is blood. There's blood. And so they have to put a stent in and let the blood leak out. And so that was maybe a 3 to 4 week endeavor to get that away from around my heart. And I was actually able to stay at the hospital that I work in. And so, you know, I had doctors that I knew that came by, and they really did their best to make sure that I was okay. Some checked in more than they were required to, and I thanked them for that. Even going back and giving my appreciation to them personally after the ordeal was over with. But it's just one thing after another, it appeared to be. And so during that hospital stay, of course, they had to add a stent around my heart, and we encountered another difficulty. The wound vac that was in use for my health, evidently it had stayed on too long. And so it seems to be the material that they use, that they put on, like a black kind of spongy material, had started to become enmeshed with my flesh. And so when one of the doctors that were a part of the cardiac department, they came by, they said that, now, you know, that's supposed to be changed out twice a week. And so we're going to see if we can find someone to do it. And so they did. They found a doctor that came over. Looked like the man was fresh out of surgery. I don't know, but he came over and he looked at it and he said, "Oh, Mr. Luton," he said, "this has been on entirely too long." Well, you see, it had not been changed, I don't think, since we came from Vanderbilt. So this was going to be another ordeal. So this is what he did. He said, "Okay, let me see." So he soaked the area around the incision with the black spongy material. He soaked it with saline. And he said, we're going to let that sit for just a moment, and then we're going to see if this will come off. Well, he let it sit probably about 10 or 15 minutes. And when he came back, he said, okay, let's see if we can remove it. And so he went to pull it, and it didn't budge. And he said, oh, now this might be a difficulty, Mr. Luton. I'm just, getting you prepared. So the next step is now we have to cut it off. So he asked my nurse to give me a measured amount of pain medication, which she did. And he said, look, I'm going to give you an hour and I'll be right back. He said, now I'm giving you that hour because I'm going to soak this in saline again. I'm going to put more saline in it. But then in an hour, the pain medication will have gotten you to a place where you'll be ready for me to remove it. And so that's exactly what he did. And he had to pull and he had to cut. And he was trying to remove all of the material that was there. And there was blood everywhere because this thing had been left on too long. But from that point on, I can say that after Doc got through and he cleaned me up, he made sure that, I was able to have the materials that were used to put the pump in place. That was changed out. Everything was new and fresh and ready to go. He even cleaned out my machine. Wonderful job. And so after that ordeal, then shortly after that, I was allowed to go home because the bag that was attached to the stent, the blood in it, there was no longer any blood coming from it. And so they took out the stent, which was painful. It was painful going in and it was painful going out. And it was just a whole lot that went into this ordeal. And so afterward, I was able to go back home and, I settled into life, carrying around the wound vac and having to get it changed out twice a week, having to keep it charged, having to sleep with it. To be honest with you, I have a recliner in my living area where that's usually where I slept. Of course, I couldn't lay out flat anyway, but that's normally where I slept. And, it just became a part of life. But I'm thankful that even though I had to go through all those things, I was able to make it through it. But now for those of us that, you might be like me, you might be a numbers person. So why am I bringing that up, the numbers part? Well, would you like to know the grand total? I know that's what you're wondering. For all of the care that I received, staying in Vanderbilt, staying at UMC, what was the grand total? The grand total that was supplied to me by Blue Cross Blue Shield was $400,000. And I'm thankful to God that I had good insurance. I had insurance that, takes care of those who are involved with it. $400,000. Listen, there would be absolutely no way without insurance that I would be able to pay that back. And because of the way that my doctors, the approach that they took, and really what they did was they narrowed down the options that I had to get well. They tried everything they possibly could. They tried medications, they tried weight change, they tried everything that they could to get me to a healthy state. And the only viable option that was left was surgery. And so in the way that they progressively moved forward, I'm assuming, it's just from my thoughts, that my insurance was okay with covering the cost to get me well. And it did work. I promise you it did. Just like my surgeon mentioned, 2 weeks after the surgery, I was breathing. Because one thing I left out in the last episode, I was getting between 5 and 10% of my oxygen from my left lung. So in their words, my left lung was not operating. My heart had begun to swell. I was not getting enough oxygen from that left lung. And so that was the reason why I could only go 5 minutes and then I'd have to sit down. Wonderful, wonderful care. 2 weeks after it was over, as I mentioned, I was up and I was around and I could breathe. And I'm just so thankful that the surgery went well. As I mentioned, they honored my wishes for no blood. It was just a wonderful thing. And before I left, I made sure that I thanked them, that I showed them my appreciation, because they did a wonderful job. Excellent. Food was good. Man, food was good. So what can you ask? What more can you ask for? A comfortable place to stay and recuperate, good food, good drink. Everything was good. And actually what happened is, while I was there, I developed an affinity more than I had for cranberry juice. Yeah, man. And so a cold cup of cranberry juice, along with the cardiac diet that they put me on, I was okay. My wife was happy to see me recuperate. There were times when things became difficult, but I'm glad to say that she stuck with me throughout those difficulties, and she really cared for me, and I appreciate her for that too. So I guess what I'm saying is, life hits you hard sometimes. It does. It hits you hard in ways that you wouldn't expect. But just because life becomes more difficult doesn't mean that you have to cower. It doesn't mean that you have to become a coward and run away, hide yourself. No. Most of the time in life, when difficulties appear, when they confront you, now here's the time to show what you're made of. What's your metal? Are you able to function only when things are good, or are you able to push through and to continue to make sure that everything around you happens as it should? Because now think about it, all this time that I'm in Vanderbilt recuperating, I'm not working, but my manager and then those in leadership in the area where I work, in the department where I work, FMLA was in place. I had several days of personal leave and sick leave. And to be honest with you, I hadn't taken a vacation. That probably was something wasn't wrong with me. I should have been taking a vacation at some point. But I was committed to the work, and so I never took a vacation. So all of the time that I had was devoted to me getting well, and it worked out to my benefit, because my leave, personal and sick leave, ran out the week that I was released to go back to work. So it was a wonderful thing. You know, there were some blessings along the way. I absolutely have to admit that. And it kind of puts you in the place where you have to look at life in a different way now. You have to make sure that even though you work hard and you care for your family, you also have to care for yourself, my brothers. That's why I'll say it again. Please take care of yourself. Look into your health. Make sure you go to those checkups. Make sure you're running the proper tests. Make sure you're in the gym. Make sure you're watching what you eat. Do all that. Because in a moment's notice, because you didn't pay the proper attention, you'd be in a situation that could possibly cost you your life. So that's what I'm saying. That's the whole thought. That's where I've been. That's where I've been. And then another thing, you all, and then we'll wrap the video up, because I think I've exhausted the notion of taking care of your health. I've emphasized this sufficiently. But another thing, I've had to changed my approach to sharing content with you all. I've had to change that approach because over the last few years, I've noticed that a lot of the way that we approach content is to be sensational, to have arguments. But for me, that's not going to work anymore. It's not going to work. That's why, even though I enjoyed being on the panel with CJ and talking to his guests and things of that sort, being on numerous panels, I just don't think that's the way to come to any practical way to deal with anything. Because you have so many people who have differing opinions, and they're trying to voice their opinion, not to make things better, but to become more popular. And see, that mixture is the perfect storm. You'll never be able to come up with anything that'll be of any value to anyone if that person can't hear you express your thoughts clearly, and if the whole basis for your discussion is to be sensational. No, that's not going to work. Because being sensational, even though it gets clicks and views, it doesn't help the viewer. It doesn't. It doesn't help the viewer. So I'm going to redirect my efforts. So a lot of the podcasts that you'll get from me, they'll be AI assisted. I'll write the script, and I'll use AI to voice the script. You'll see from time to time I'll check in and make sure that everyone is okay with the way that things sound, the notions that I present. But I think that's a better and more effective way. And if a person has objections, they have something else they want to say, they can leave it in the comments. I just don't think that panel approach is geared toward help, because I've seen some very, very genuine panelists, people that are actually trying to do some good. They're actually trying to help. They're actually trying to steer individuals in the right direction, or at least give them a basis to see what they're doing differently. And I've seen them being shouted down and shamed for some of the things that they believe, some of the notions that they hold dear. And I think that in a panel situation, that's what you're asking for. You're asking people to become combative. You're asking people to fight over ideas, and that's not going to get us anywhere. Not fighting over ideas. Now, if we're going to have a sensible debate, okay? If we're going to have a reasonable discussion, okay? But if sensationalism is the goal, I'd rather not be involved. Really, truly, and honestly, I'd rather not be involved, because there's real work going on. And I think not as a group, but individually, I think that as individuals, we can get better day by day. And I think that's where I'm going to aim my content personally, day by day, becoming better, becoming the kind of person that you can be proud of, that your family can be proud of, that everyone around you can be proud of. So I think that's a more reasonable expectation. I think that's a more reasonable goal to set, because taking on the situation and trying to approach it by trying to melt together many viewpoints, many notions, and some of them contradictory. You're trying to melt those together in order for the person who's viewing to come to some kind of logical and reasonable conclusion. You're not going to get it. So I'm going to readjust the way I do things. You won't get anything but positivity from me from now on. I promised that before I stopped podcasting and dealt with my sickness, and I'm going to continue that pursuit to be positive, to give you something practical so that you can use it and move forward. And a lot of the things that you'll hear from me will be things that I've tested myself, and they work. So I hope that I've shed light on what has been going on with me, what has happened lately. And I hope that you all who are subscribed I appreciate your support. I appreciate the fact that you all didn't give up on me, and I hope that the new content will be to your liking. So, as always, you know how I end this thing. First of all, let me get parked. I don't want to run into anybody. Here we go. All right. So I love you. And as always, man, be easy. Peace.